Hey friend, welcome back to the Nourisher Podcast. I am so glad that you're here today, truly. This episode feels a little extra special because we're talking about something every woman goes through at some point in her life, but very few of us feel comfortable saying it out loud. What it means to lose yourself and what it takes to find your way back. Today, I'm joined by someone who embodies that journey so beautifully, the talented, creative, and wildly multifaceted Megan Lewis. Megan is one of those women who does a little bit of everything, and she does it with so much heart. But like many of us, life handed her a season of grief that completely shifted her world. It was heavy, messy, and it pushed her straight into the work of therapy. Not the cute Instagram quote version, but the real, vulnerable kind that asks you to sit with yourself and rebuild from the inside out. In this conversation, Megan opens up about how grief completely cracked her open, how therapy helped her make sense of who she was becoming, and how she slowly and bravely began reclaiming the parts of herself that she thought that she had lost. So if you've been feeling disconnected, stuck, or like you're walking through your own, I don't even recognize myself anymore chapter, this one is for you, girl. Take a breath, settle in, and let's get into it. Megan, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I am doing so good. I feel like I see you a lot. I see you at like every event in Amarillo.
We do. We run into each other quite a bit, but I love it. I love seeing you.
To give people an explanation of why we see each other so much, can you give us a little background on maybe like where you're from, what you do for a living, and then we'll jump into our conversation?
Absolutely, yeah. Well, I'm from here and I, went to school here and everything. I went to WT, and the most random thing about me is people will be shocked when I tell them I have an ag business degree and I do marketing for a living.
Interesting. Okay. Everyone who goes into like an agriculture degree in any way, shape, or form, I don't know that they all end up doing something related to that field.
I describe it to people as like I basically graduated with a business degree, but with an emphasis on agriculture. And I just loved the ag department so much at WT that I stayed in it because I started out as pre-vet, realized there was a lot of science behind it, decided after my first year that I did not want to continue that route. So I switched it over to ag business and I really enjoyed it. But then after graduating, I just fell into marketing roles and just went with it after that.
And you own your own business as well.
Yes, Anxious Apparel is my child right now, and it's just like an outlet for me to do like mental health and like witty sayings and stuff. And it's just a brand that I feel like just kind of has a voice for people that want something different.
I love seeing you at pop-up events and things like that because your designs are so fun and they really kind of feed that like dopamine that I need in my life.
Yes, absolutely. I've had people come up and be like, thank you for having something different. And I've never expected to get that kind of feedback. And so like hearing people say that to me, I'm like, okay, let's keep going.
I love that it kind of ties into your story that we're going to be talking about today. So we'll just kind of dive right in. And I just want to first say thank you so much for being willing to be open and vulnerable with so many people who are listening, because you may not know all of them. And it's just really special when people decide to come out and share their experience with us.
Absolutely. I'm an open book and I just love being able to talk about these things because there's such a stigma to like mental health and therapy and grief. And I just think that people should not be ashamed to hear about it or talk about it. And so I just kind of feel lucky to be able to tell that story. So thank you.
Of course. Okay. So take us back a little bit. Who was Megan before you started therapy? What did life look like for you personally and maybe even professionally as well?
Before I got to where I'm at now, I just worked at a lot of places that I wasn't happy at, and it was really affecting me mentally and even physically. I just wasn't happy. I was realizing I was depressed, but not even knowing I was depressed yet. COVID just happened. I was working and doing marketing and social media, And I had experienced kind of like our first big death in the family, which was on my husband's side. And it was just so sad because it was peak COVID. We weren't able to visit her. We weren't able to check on her. Only her kids were able to go and see her. So that was really hard, like having to experiencing that. And then right after that, my grandfather passed away. And that one I was okay with because he was so old and was suffering that we were at peace with it. We were like, we just don't want him to suffer anymore. But then shortly after that, my uncle had passed away. And that was the one that just completely flipped my world upside down and just shook me to my core. I was not okay. And I really had struggled strongly with my anxiety and depression after that point. I was just stuck in a funk and I was just so angry and just so upset all the time. And I had just gotten to a point where I was like, I don't want to do this. Like, I don't want this to be my life. And he was the kind of person that wouldn't want us to be dwelling in this and not being happy and living our lives. And so I was like, I have to do something about this.
I mean, experiencing so much grief at one time during COVID, because it's like our mental health was already struggling because we couldn't go anywhere or do anything. But then you have sick family members that you aren't able to visit. And then, of course, they're passing away. And then there's all these limitations and restrictions on like funerals and the whole process after someone passes from COVID. Like, I can't imagine the struggles that you were going through because of all of those factors happening to you at one time.
Yeah. So I wasn't working at that point. I had stopped. I was like, I am not useful. My brain just wasn't working. And I'm a creative person. And nothing was coming to me. And so I just felt useless and hopeless. And I am somebody who loves to work. I work hard at everything I do and I take pride in my work. So for me not to do that, there like something was wrong and I was like, we've got to fix this.
And sure, there were so many different kind of beliefs about yourself or your life or even habits that you developed just having to cope with all of that. So what were some of those habits that you carried at that time that maybe you realize now they weren't serving you?
Oh, I was internalizing everything. So I wasn't talking about how I felt. I was just taking it all in and just dwelling on it. And that was not healthy. I just like it would build up over time. And then eventually I would just have like a mental breakdown and just be crying and upset. And I didn't like the way that made me feel, or like, especially getting to that point, because I would also get super irritable. And I don't like getting that way because then I just feel like it's hard for me to be around others. They might not be doing something, but because I'm just so irritable, it's just hard for me to be around other people.
Oh, for sure. And sometimes they're like, oh, just have a good cry. It'll make you feel better. When you're in that state and you have a mental breakdown, it doesn't at all make you feel better. It's worse.
And I learned too, like, people really didn't know how to react or like say the right things. And I think that's what made it worse. Some people just weren't experiencing the same things that I was going through, except for like my family members. People would not intentionally say the wrong thing or like, oh, everything happens for a reason. Like that would be the worst thing you could say to me because I was like, that's not okay. Like, you don't understand. And I don't think that that's the right thing for you to say. But people weren't intentionally doing that. And so I just would avoid people at all costs.
I completely understand that. Do you feel like you were even connected to yourself at that point? Or do you just feel like you're mostly in either like autopilot or survival mode?
I wasn't completely disconnected, but I wasn't addressing anything like that was going on because I was internalizing it. I've always been myself, but I wasn't the best version of myself at that time.
For sure. And I think it kind of takes us getting out of that stage of our life to realize that we weren't our best selves. Because in the moment, you're like, I'm just doing the best I can, honestly.
Oh, yeah. I was just taking it day by day at that point, just going through the motions. And I was like, this is not what life is about. It continued to get harder because, we did continue to lose more family members. But just when my uncle had passed, like that just, I was like, this world is so unfair. I'm so angry. how could you take somebody so wonderful? Like, I had even told my aunt, I was like, why couldn't you make me sick instead of him? Like, why did he have to go? Like, why couldn't I have taken that illness away from him? Autopilot's a good way to describe that, because the people that know me, I'm loud. I like to be funny. I like to liven the mood. And so for me not to be like that, something was wrong.
Ugh, yeah. I think if I was in your family and I ever said, because again, when I see you, you're always so happy and so bubbly. And so I feel like if I saw you in that state, I would be very, very concerned.
And they knew. We got better about talking about things, and my dad would be like, are you okay? And I'd be like, I'm still struggling with this. Like, that was my dad's only brother. And he was like, me too. Like, we just were open about talking about that, and just, I'm trying to find a solution to where I can work on myself and get out of this funk.
Was there anything that surprised you the most about how you were reacting to grief? I know you said you checked out, you were just not wanting to do anything, really kind of just dealing with the lows of depression. But was there anything in that moment and in that stage of life that surprised you about yourself?
I was surprised at how I reacted to grief. I thought I was much stronger than that. I didn't expect to be so sad and depressed and emotional. On top of that, I developed severe PTSD and trauma from the phone ringing. And I know that sounds crazy, but it was just like every time the phone rang, my heart would drop. And I would just be expecting the worst, expecting there to be bad news. And that's something that I still work on today, is taking a deep breath and not assuming the worst. Because every time we would get a call, it was like always in the morning time, and it was always bad news.
Yeah. And you dealt with so many of those phone calls in a short period of time.
We did.
And so even those small, tiny little actions or things that happen in our daily life, it's surprising, I think, to anyone how our body physically reacts to things like that.
Yeah, it's just crazy how you don't know what's going to happen until it happens. I didn't expect to like develop these things and then be just so scarred by them. It's like when you think you're stronger than you are, sometimes, life or reality hits you, and then you just have to face it on how you react.
Life definitely like slaps us in the face so many times.
Oh yeah, every day I'm like, okay, what's next? Yeah, at this point I'm like, I can take it.
I do think a lot of people can relate where you think you're going to be able to handle something, like we think about the death of our family members often, especially as they get older. You can assume or you can make a guess as to how you'll handle it. But for a lot of us, it's like, I can handle a lot. I've been through a lot. And then something happens to us and it completely breaks us down.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, like I said, I thought I was so much stronger than that. I always tell people I'm not afraid of death. I am always afraid of losing the people closest to me. And so when that reality hit me, I was not ready for it at all. And it's especially because we kept experiencing it over the past couple years in just such a short amount of time, of how many people we have lost in our lives. Even grandparents, when you're kind of expecting it and you're like, we don't want you to suffer anymore, like, it's okay. It's still hard to go through that and face it. But it was the unexpected ones that hit me the most, because my uncle passed away and we weren't expecting that at all. And then when my husband's uncle passed away, it like started that all over again because it was so unexpected. And so it's the unexpected ones that kind of like push me back a little bit more.
Yeah. Were you attempting therapy or trying therapy out at all during this point?
Once my uncle had passed away and I was going through the motions and, like really at my lowest, I was like, I need to do something about it. So I had actually been helping my aunt take my little cousin to her therapy sessions, and I would just wait outside. And I think it was her second therapy session that I was just sitting there in the waiting room. And I was like, you know what? If she's this young and she can do this, like, I think I can do this. And so I was like, can I talk to you for a second? And I told her, the therapist, I was like, I'm struggling and I've been going through grief and I really need help. I would like to see somebody. And so it was at that moment that I started going to therapy.
Listen, I do think one good thing that came out of COVID is that so many people decided that it was time to get into therapy and to start talking to someone. And now it's just such a normalized thing. There was such a stigma around it before, and now people are more open to it. And I do feel like we're walking around with a little bit more of an idea of who we are, who we want to be and what we want in life. And I really, really just cannot appreciate that enough.
I'm such a huge advocate for therapy. I think COVID made people realize, like, when you're stuck just by yourself for so long, people were working from home, people weren't able to socialize or see family members or do their normal things, or like people were scared. And just the whole COVID itself was scary to people. Once you're like kind of by yourself and realizing like you're stuck with your problems and you're learning to face that. And so going and seeking help to change that, oh, I just love that it sparked that inside of people to be able to start going and doing that.
I agree. This is kind of two-sided because I wanted to ask
Throw it
you
at
this
me.
question, but also I also think it's going to help people who maybe haven't taken that leap to understand why we love therapy so much. So can you talk about your first experience with therapy, like once you finally committed to going consistently?
People need to understand that you're going into something and this person has no idea who you are. And you're going to tell them about yourself. You're going to tell them about your family members, your relationships, your work experience, and they don't have a bias towards you. So you're allowed to say how you feel, like what you're thinking, and there's no judgment. And then they're going to help you start to understand things that you may have never thought about, and then like give you these tools to help like work on yourself or work on relationships or any kind of thing that you might need help with. Like, this person is there for you and to help you become a better version of yourself.
For sure. And I really love that every therapist is different. Like you could have the same therapist as your best friend or three of your friends, but the way that they approach your healing journey is completely individualized to you.
Oh yeah. And sometimes too, like I let people know like that first person you talk to may not be the right fit. And that's okay. It's like starting medication. Like that may not be the first fit. Like everything is a process, but be willing to ride the train and figure out what works for you. I was upfront with my therapist and the therapist I see now and was like, look, I am somebody who doesn't want to be coddled. I want you to tell me how it is. Like, I want some tough love. But I need you to guide me at the same time.
Exactly. Oh, no, I love it so much. What were the biggest aha moments for you that maybe therapy revealed about yourself?
My therapist now would always ask me, but what are you doing for yourself? And I never realized that I was putting myself on the back burner every single time. So I was a yes person for everybody in my family, my friends. I was always doing for other people, and I was forgetting about myself. He was like helping me make myself a priority, and I didn't realize how much of an issue that was, that I wasn't putting myself first.
I feel like you and I are very similar in that sense because I am also a yes person, and it wasn't necessarily that I was thinking I don't want to do this, but I need to say yes. I just like to help people, and I want to be there for them in their time of, need. And so it's like, yes, of course I'll give to you. I'll give my time. I'll give my money. I'll give my, all to everyone else. But then you take that step back. And I know a lot of therapists probably have to tell people, what do you do for yourself?
Yeah. And then especially if you're there for yourself, like that's the right step. But like in my family, our love language is acts of service, but I take it to a whole nother level. And it would be things that somebody could do for themselves, but I would end up doing it. I had to learn how to set boundaries and say no. And I noticed a huge difference because I would get like so tired and to do for everybody else, I would get burnt out. And then I realized like, okay, this is becoming a problem. Like, he's right. Like, I need to start doing for myself.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what's important here too is to remind people that when we start drawing boundaries for ourselves, it doesn't necessarily mean that we're not going to show up for anyone anymore. And so I want to kind of dive into that a little bit and just about how therapy changed the way that you show up in your relationships, whether that was with your family, your friends, or even your with your husband.
When it comes to relationships for me, like I don't usually let people in really easily, but when I do, like I'm very protective and I'm a ride or die. Like I will be there for you no matter what till the end. Like that's why I would always do so much for other people. But after I learned to put in boundaries and stuff like that, that made the relationships even better, especially when it came to family members who were sick at the time. We before a lot of them passed, like we were in these transition periods where we had to put some of them into nursing homes or Alzheimer's care because we did go through a couple of those situations. When we're young, we think, oh, I have time to spend with my grandparents. Like, I'll see them another time. Even if I was tired, I made time to go and visit them because that's everything to them. And so I made it a priority to set time aside every day or every other day to go and visit. And anytime family members wanted to get together, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to make time for that. Like, don't worry.
Dealing with the things that you have gone through, especially during COVID and so much loss, I think that starts to put things into perspective for us with spending time with our family. I know as my family gets older, I think, I really should, instead of getting my nails done on a Friday, I should really, go and have lunch with my grandparents because they won't be here forever. And so it does put those things into perspective for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially too, like seeing it now, like Thanksgiving and Christmases are getting a little bit smaller because, we don't have as many of them around. Just showing up for those like little moments means so much. Before that, especially, when I went through a time period where I didn't want to be around anybody, I didn't want to go to family events. So I definitely changed that and I, flipped it. Family means a lot and we've been through a lot. So I'm going to be there for those moments.
What do you feel like's been the hardest part of healing overall?
For me, the hardest part was the acceptance, especially with my uncle and Brandon's uncle. Those were the ones that were the unexpected losses, like just they passed away, had a heart attack. They both lived out of town. My uncle had lived in Dumas and his uncle had lived in Dallas. I just was going day by day being like, oh, they're still here. They're just at home, and like having to understand that and then letting go of the anger, especially after my uncle had passed away. There's like a verse in a song where he says, I buried my faith with you. That was my experience, is I had buried my faith with my uncle. I still struggle to this day, and I go over that with my therapist, but for the longest time, I just had a hard time accepting.
I can't imagine how hard that is because, again, especially during COVID, right? Like you weren't getting to see these people very often. And then all of a sudden, just one day they're not there. It would be very hard to kind of come to terms with that and not be angry.
Oh, yeah. Because, I remember it very vividly. Like we were allowed to go and see his grandmother or my uncle because it was strict lockdown. Like nobody could come in, like not even closest family members could go in and see them. And so we were just literally calling and bothering the nurses every single day, checking in and getting a photo and, they're not okay. And you're like, I am not able to see them and show them that I'm here. And then you're just so angry because it's like, how can that person like have their last days alone? Like that's not fair to anybody. And then I would also get angry again because I would see how it hurt my family members. And then a moment would come up where they would be sad and, angry again. And I take their pain because I want to be able to help. And, the emotions would just start all over again. And I would get upset because I'm like, I'm not the only one going through that. They're also affected by it.
I actually really love that you're highlighting almost this disintegration of your faith with all of the loss that you've experienced, because that is such a real thing. Like we don't talk about it enough. And, you know, a lot of people like to come to us and, like you said earlier, they're like, well, everything happens for a reason, or, you know, God needed them more than we did. And those are just not comforting words
No,
to
that was the
us.
most upsetting thing to me is when people would say that. And I'm like, how can that be? Like, he loves us, right? So why would he take the most important people away from us?
Yeah, and I really just appreciate you for being so open and honest about that. But I am curious maybe how your therapist is helping you along in that way, because I'm sure it's something that you, like you said, you're still dealing with it to this very moment.
Oh yeah, I mean, my therapist is just really good at listening to me and understanding it because I think at first I was afraid to say that. And I didn't really even know how to put that into words. But when I heard that verse, I was like, oh my goodness, like that's what makes the most sense to me is I buried my faith with this person because I mean, I'm still angry. I'm like, you know, why do these things happen, especially to these incredible people that have impacted my life and then they're just gone. And so he has just like told me, like, continue to feel those feelings out and go from there.
It's a step-by-step process, that's for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, because I wasn't expecting to be fixed overnight. Like, I have been going to therapy consistently for 4 years. And even whenever I feel like I'm okay, like things are going good, but things come up, things change. And so I advocate that people continue to go even when you feel like you're okay. Because just like you go to see your regular doctor or your dentist for your, you know, monthly checkup, like, why wouldn't you continue to maintain your mental health? And I just like tell people like then just change the frequency of it. Like if you're going twice a month, change it to once a month. Like just check in with yourself.
Oh, yeah. I definitely think when things are going good, we think, oh, we're good. We don't need to talk to anybody. That's when we hit our delusional phase
Oh yeah.
sometimes. And then we have that person to kind of bring us back to ourselves and be like, okay, yes, everything is so great. How are we doing on XYZ? And then it kind of is just like, oh, yeah, I've been burying that, so I haven't had to think about it.
Yeah, and just from my experience, therapy came at the right time for me because after my uncle had passed, I mean, we still had 4 or 5 more family members pass away, and each experience was different. And, you know, uncle having a heart attack or an aunt going through dementia, and you physically see them fade. I was just glad that I had somebody to talk to and continue to work on that because it never stopped. I believe that some people can find a way through the other side, but for me, I'm still working on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Like we said, definitely a work in progress always. How do you feel like your identity shifted since you started going to therapy and processing all of this grief and life experience?
For me, I became an open book. I was like, you want to talk about it? Let's go. I'm going to make you feel more comfortable about this situation. Like I said, I advocate for people to go to therapy and I will talk about mental health and um, telling them, like, yeah, I go see a psychiatrist. Like, I'm on medication. Like, I'm not ashamed to talk about these things because that's who I am. And that got me to where I am today. I'm definitely a lot stronger than I was. I don't take shit from anyone, and I don't care what anybody thinks anymore because it's not their life that they're living. It's my life, and I'm going to do what I want to do that makes me happy, and I'm going to do for my family members and my friends and my husband, and I'm not going to take anybody else's crap.
I love that for you. That sounds like the best version of you that I can like imagine.
It was a climb, let me tell you that, but I'm just so happy to be where I'm at and to continue to work on myself. You know, I started to make myself a priority. I started to, you know, set boundaries with people and I learned to say no. That was a big thing that I had to work on. And, you know, my therapist is just really good about asking me, like, what have you done for yourself? And I'm like, hey, like I took your advice and I'm doing these. I'm taking those skills and I'm implementing them into my everyday life and they've helped. Just am so glad to not be in such a dark place anymore. It's incredible.
Like you look back and you don't think that you had problems necessarily. Like you think you were just living this best life. And then when you get on the other side of it, right, you're just like, oh my gosh, who is that person? Why do they want these things? They're lying to themselves completely because none of that matters anymore. And so when you get to be on the other side of it and you see how happy you are after climbing out of this valley, it's just so freeing. And I feel like it makes it feel better and it exudes out of people. And I definitely see that in you 100%.
And like I told my husband this the other day, well, actually last night, because I was like, I was going over these questions with him because I was like, you went through this experience with me too. Like, if there's anything that I'm missing, let me know. And I told him, as I continued to grow and got better and I worked on myself, I said, I remember your aunt and she's one of the ones that lost her husband in this whole process. She had said to me at one point, it's so good to see you smile again. Like, she noticed that change too. You don't think it affects people, and not everybody probably was paying attention, but she noticed it. And especially for somebody who is going through such a strong amount of that grief too, it's like, wow, that's incredible for somebody else to see that too, like the progress that you've made.
For sure. It's validating and it makes you feel even more positive about the steps that you've taken to get to the place that you are.
Yeah, that was a big moment for me, and I will always hold that in my heart just because everybody's not alone going through this process. And so for her to have seen how much I was struggling too before that, and then she's struggling, but for her just to tell me that, I was like, wow, I went through such a crazy time in my life, and I'm just glad to be where I'm at now.
So what would you say to maybe a woman or anyone listening who feels like they might be losing themselves, but they don't know where to begin?
Just try. Like, try to make those changes, see what works for you. Go to a psychiatrist or a psychologist and, ask for help, just depending on the severity of it, of course. One of my first steps was I realized I was an anxious person, and that's probably just going to be who I am for the rest of my life. So I went to a doctor. I talked to my aunt who's a psychiatrist and said, I don't want to be on this medicine. Like, what do you recommend? I took those first steps and got on medication. And then going through all of this grief, I was like, okay, the next step for me is therapy. So I started going to therapy, and that was one of the biggest helps. And just don't be scared to ask for help. Talk to others who have gone through the same thing, or talk to a professional. But you have to try. You have to be willing to make those changes in order to help yourself.
I agree 100%. Even with starting with a friend, I think it's hard for people to make that leap. I know there's certain people in my life that I told them I was going to therapy. I was having such great breakthroughs, and they still were stuck in that like stigma of, well, I don't really have that many problems. And just because your therapist told you to do that, people just kind of, they get a little ugly whenever they're defending themselves almost. Like they're just in their survival mode and they aren't sure that they're ready for that place. So what advice would you give to somebody if they aren't sure if they're ready to take the leap from talking to trusted friends and family into taking it a step further into therapy?
I just think like if you're stuck in your ways and you're just like going through the same routine and you're not happy and you're not making those improvements or the strides, like these people are trained to help you and to give you advice and to help you make a new routine for yourself. And it's like if you're going to go to a doctor for a broken bone or your heart doctor, like why wouldn't you go see somebody for your mind? Why wouldn't you take those steps? Like, I still don't understand why it's stigmatized, and I hate that. So that's why I love to talk about it. But it's like going to any other doctor. And it may be scary. But like you said, once you come to the other side, you're going to be so relieved that you did it. I've noticed a huge shift in my personal life, and the people in my life have been more open to it. My husband sees a therapist. My sister sees a therapist. Like, I've had family members be like, can you ask your therapist who else in their office they recommend going to? Like, just seeing somebody else go through that, I've seen people be like more open to it now. So even just to be more open to it now is such a good feeling because people are starting to realize like they can't do it all themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I know my husband is one of those people who's like, I don't really need a therapist. Like, I think I'll just, deal with it. And I tell him about the conversations I have with my own, and he's just like, oh, okay, that's not at all what I thought therapy was. And I'm just like, no, it's literally just talking. Like what you and I do every single day, it's just talking. But instead of knowing all the ins and outs of who I am and having their own bias, they are completely neutral and they just tell you from a different perspective. And it's so nice to hear that. People have a hard time understanding you have friends, you have family, you have your husband, you have people who have been going through the same thing. Why can't you just talk to them? It's totally different. And so I really love that you've been able to help us take a step in the right direction and maybe consider therapy along with any other healing mechanisms we're using.
Yeah, and I think like you said, like you telling your husband like, oh, this is my experience or this is what we're going through or these are the tools that they gave me. I think if like even just explaining that to somebody else to help them get a better understanding is getting them to take a step in the right direction towards something that is going to help them. And I mean, I just tell people like, this is my experience. Like I've switched therapists since because sometimes you can outgrow a therapist. Like my last therapist was kind of like, I felt like they were getting more biased to a certain extent. So I was like, this isn't a right fit for me. And then went to a new therapist. Like that happens and that's okay. And I therapist now. I have made even more growth than my last therapist. And my last therapist still helped me quite a bit because of how traumatized I was whenever my uncle had passed away and just the way I had handled everything. Like whenever my mom had called me, it was like I had been stabbed and I was like screaming and I was inconsolable. And I did a couple of sessions of EMDR, and that is a type of therapy that helps remove the negative effects that your brain associates with those thoughts. And that stuff works. And I've seen people who have gone through the full process and it has helped them tremendously. There are so many different kinds of therapy that you can do. And that was one of my experiences going through that. And it helped me. I didn't associate such negativity towards that memory anymore.
I have never done that, but I have heard it's extremely powerful. A little nerve-wracking, a little scary, but very powerful.
It can be because you're facing that trauma head on in order to help yourself in the future not be so affected by it. And there's so many different ways that they can approach you with that. But I just was like, I'm struggling with this one specific point in my life and memory that I really do need help. And I did those sessions and it really did help me.
Megan, I feel like you've given us so many good pointers. Like I know we shared your story and your personal experience, which I'm so, so grateful for. But I really do think you have been so open about your healing process that it really has given us and the listeners an opportunity to really think about how we're taking the reins of our own healing process. So thank you so much for sharing.
Absolutely. Of course, you are in control of yourself and you have to be the one to take those next steps in order to better yourself.
Absolutely. Okay. So I always wrap up the podcast with a couple of fun questions. The first question is, what is one thing that most people may not know about you?
That I'm a metalhead.
What? Oh, metalhead. Yes. Okay. I have seen this. I've seen this on your stories and Brittany's stories, and I need to know details. So explain to us what that actually means.
People are so surprised when they look at us because we stick out like sore thumbs, but the genre of metal is our favorite type of music. And we love going to shows, and that's, them screaming and playing loud music, lights flashing everywhere. And we just have so much fun. And you can find us in the middle, in the mosh pit, with everybody else who's just letting loose.
I was about to ask if you guys were in the mosh pit, like in the middle, and what that experience is like, because I would be terrified.
We're usually on the outside, trying to push people in because it can get a little crazy, but like Brandon and Jarrett, they will go in the middle of it. They're a little bit tougher than we are. There was a time where Brittany and I accidentally got stuck in the middle of one. We were literally just crossing through, and before we knew it, people were flying around all around us, and it was like the scene in Titanic where they reach their hands out for each other, and both of us just grab each other's hands, and we're like, no! And then I, like, at some point got hit in the face, and I was like, this is why I like to be on the outside, because I can at least see everybody else and what they're doing. If you're in the middle of it, you don't know, like, and nobody is malicious when they do this. Like, everybody, like, if somebody falls down, everybody grabs that person, picks them back up. Like, it's not crazy. Everybody is so nice. Everybody's there to have fun. But, like, if you fall or, like, crowd surfing, everybody helps each other out.
That makes me feel a little bit better. I have to ask if you have a favorite. You have to pick one, a favorite metal band.
Right now, I would say it's the Plot in You.
Okay. See, I've never heard of this, so now you're expanding my music.
And a lot of
genres.
people don't know that a lot of the metal bands and like the songs that they come out with are mental health based. Like, these people in their lyrics talk about their experiences or a friend's experience. And so that's why it just resonates so much with us. People think you can't understand the lyrics, and they're not all screaming. But like, once you actually listen to them, like, these people talk about their experiences or their addictions or, you know, their experience with mental health, and they just put it in such words where in their songs that it just makes sense. And then it resonates with a lot of people, because I've seen a lot of people at these concerts and listening to it who are crying, and like, that song saved their life and that song got them through a tough time. So it's really neat to see how that music has affected people.
Okay, do you have a Spotify? Do you listen on Spotify?
I do. I'm Spotify through and through.
Okay, same girls. Team Spotify all the way. Someone said Apple Music the other day. I was like, ew.
Yeah, one of our friends, we were sharing our Wrapped, and he was like, I'm on Apple Music, like, boom me. And I'm like, yeah, what's wrong with you? Why are you on Apple Music?
Okay, I'll have to get a Spotify playlist from you just so I can hear this and experience, and I'll have a mini mosh pit in my room with just me and maybe like my sister or something.
It's also great to work out to, or like running. Like, I feel like it's motivating when you listen to that kind of music.
I trust you 100%. Okay, next question is, who are 3 women that inspire you?
The first person immediately every time that comes to mind is my grandmother. She is the strongest person in the entire world. She has been through it. She came from Mexico, got her papers a long time ago, worked her butt off for my mom and her 2 sisters, has been through it with my grandfather, who was an alcoholic, and is the kindest, most nurturing person in the world. She is who I aspire to be one day, to be that kind and that nurturing. The second person would be my best friend, Brittany. She is so hardworking. We literally we don't share a brain. We're not dumb. But we have the same brain. She's truly the best friend that I've ever had in my entire life. Like, I've never experienced friendship until she came into my life, and we've known each other for 10 plus years by now, and our husbands are best friends too. And then the third person is probably, I'm going to break the rules, a tie between my aunt Maribel, who is very strong and so kind and nice, but Brandon's aunt Debbie, who has experienced a great loss where her husband passed away unexpectedly from a heart attack. And just to see her strength that she has, and like how she goes through grief all the time, it's incredible how she handles it every day, because she lost like her best friend, her person, and continues to be a beautiful person and live life every single day.
I love your list. And I think you're so much more like all of those women than you realize. And I just love that they have had such an impact on your life. I only know Brittany, and I can already tell you just that you guys together are like a power team, but you're also both so kind and wonderful to people around you. And so I think you definitely have characteristics from all of those women for sure.
Thank you.
You're like, I'm blushing. Are you the type of person who can't take a compliment? That's something you need to work on in therapy.
Probably 100%, because somebody will say something to me. I'm like, ugh, stop it. My husband will be like, oh, you look so good. And I'm like, you're lying.
Same. I'm like, no, I don't. Well, Megan, thank you so much again. I want to give you an opportunity because your work is so heavily involved with your healing process. I want to give you a chance to tell people where to follow along with your business so we can keep up with all the exciting things that you're doing.
Yes. Well, Anxious Apparel, you can follow me on Instagram. It is Anxious Apparel AMA or Facebook. I am currently working on my website. I am learning to make that a priority, and we'll have that up by the beginning of next year.
It's almost time for me to get my next thing from you. I feel like every time I see you, I buy something.
I love it. I love it.
And then you've expanded because it was clothes at first. Like Anxious Apparel is not just clothes, right?
Yeah. And then I got into TikTok, influenced me into hand knitting this year. So I am an old lady at home hand knitting blankets, and I love it.
You know what? We all have to have something. And your blankets are so adorable. I even bought one for my niece.
Yes, that was one of my favorites. I just love doing it. Like, and we had a lot of family members who had babies this year. And like for birthday presents, I was like, I know what I'm getting you. I'm hand making it. And I somehow fell into it. Crocheting is another story. It made me cry because I still can't do it. We'll see one day if I can ever conquer that. But hand knitting is what I'm sticking to right now.
It's a flex, girl. Yeah, I could never.
I'm definitely going to have arthritis in my hands before you know it.
Well, they're beautiful. I love that it gives you an opportunity to expand your business, and I appreciate you in so many ways. I hope you know that, and I know you're going to inspire lots and lots of people in your daily life, but also through this episode, and just I'm so grateful for you.
Thank you. I'm grateful for you, and you doing this podcast is just, it's so beautiful because you're like giving other women a voice to talk about things that are important and that more people need to hear about. And so what you're doing is absolutely incredible.
There is just something really powerful about hearing another woman say, yeah, I've been there too, and I made it through. If you are in a season of rebuilding, reclaiming, or even just trying to understand yourself a little better, please know that you are not doing it wrong. Healing isn't a race, and it definitely is not a straight line. It's allowed to be slow, it's allowed to be messy, and it's allowed to look different for you than it does for everyone else. I want to say thank you to Megan for showing up with so much honesty and heart, and to you listening. Thank you for being a part of this community. You are what makes the Nourisher podcast what it is. If today's episode spoke to you, feel free to share it with a friend who might need it. And as always, until next time, stay strong, stay connected, and keep growing. The Nourisher Podcast is all about sharing personal stories and experiences, but it is not a substitute for professional mental health care. Nothing in this episode should be considered medical, therapeutic, or professional advice. If you are struggling, please reach out to a licensed mental health provider or someone you trust.